I think the question is it worth it?
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Taya and this is my boyfriend Devin.
Hi.
Today we want to talk about long distance relationships because we have been in one for the last about 2 years. And so do you want to start by saying a few things about yourself?
Yeah, so I am Canadian. I was born and raised just south of Toronto and just recently moved to London. I pursued a engineering degree in Canada before I moved to London and then accepted a job as an engineer here in London. What about you, Taya?
Well, I'm from Switzerland. I grew up there and I'm currently studying psychology there. And yeah, I really enjoy it. The topic of this video is it worth it to be in a long distance relationship? So we want to discuss a few things that we've noticed over the time that we've been in a long distance relationship.
Right.
And share that with you so you can get inspired by that and maybe apply it to your own life.
Right.
So we met about 2 years ago, a little less than that, in London, England, because I was traveling and you were
traveling as well with 3 of my friends. We did a backpacking trip through Europe.
And so London was our first stop and that's where we met. We were staying in the same hostel and then we met at the bar and we had a few drinks together with his friends and my friend. And then we just started talking and
kept in touch.
We just started texting and then we FaceTimed a few times. And then you guys decided to come over, stay at our place.
Right, to stay in Switzerland. And we had planned to go to Switzerland, but not to Taya's place. So we spent 5 days in Switzerland together.
Yeah.
Taya and I, and the 3 guys did as well.
Yeah, his friends. And so I showed them around. And then after that, Devin was supposed to stay for 2 months in Europe. And then he decided to stay an extra month so he could spend some more time with me.
Yeah, and it was great. It allowed us to connect a bit more. We had a talk to see where we stood, where we were going.
Yeah, because I think that's a really important thing to do, like talk with the other person where you stand, because yeah, otherwise you wouldn't know. So as we said, we've been in this relationship for 2 years, and over the first year we saw each other about 4 times.
4 times, because maybe 3, because I was in Canada still.
Yeah, and I was in Switzerland. It was a little hard to see each other, but we're going to talk a little more about that later. And now that he lives in London, we can afford to see each other a little more often, like every 3 or 4 weeks, so that's really nice.
Only an hour and a half flight, which is nice.
So do you want to start by talking about the first few things that are difficult?
So the time difference. A big thing for us was the time difference, and I think for Taya it was a bit more difficult than for me because she was ahead of time. So
when he was in Toronto, we had a 6-hour time difference, and it was pretty hard because when he was coming home from work, I was already in bed, and like when he was in bed and sleeping, I was going about my day. So it was hard to find a time to talk to each other. At first we talked at night, so I had to stay up late to talk to him. Mm-hmm. But that really quickly took a toll on my mental health because I had to stay up and I was losing sleep because I had to get up early the next morning, and it wasn't sustainable.
Messes with your sleep schedule and
and when you're not rested, you can't function.
Right. That was definitely a difficulty for us. So we compromised and said some days I would wake up early and some days you would stay up late.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to have a balance between each other so that we're both exhausted the same amount.
Or we're both a little more rested at the same time.
Right. So another thing that was difficult for us was saying goodbye. Mm-hmm. And I think that's common in any long distance relationship or any relationship when you're leaving for somewhere for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
If saying goodbye is always difficult.
So it was hard when we weren't together, but then now that he lives in London, we see each other pretty often, but then that also means that we have to say goodbye more, and that is really hard for me personally. I think it is for you too.
It's hard in both directions for both of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's something that you have to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. We get to see each other more, but the downside is that we have to say goodbye more.
Yeah.
And for now, that's something that we have to live with.
And also another thing is we get to spend weekends together, but it always feels like we don't have enough time. You get there late at night and then you have like the Saturday together, but then you already leave on Sunday, so.
Yeah, limited time, that's another difficulty for us.
Yeah.
But let's move on to something a little more positive. So let's talk about the positives.
As we said, there's difficulties, but there's also a lot of benefits to being in a long distance relationship. One thing that you get out of your long distance relationship is independence. Since you and your partner can't see each other all the time, you have to find stuff to do. Because when you get into a new relationship, I feel like a lot of people have a tendency to just spend all their free time with that person, which is not a bad thing, but you can start neglecting like your hobbies and your friends and your family.
Right.
So one thing with a long distance relationship is that you can't spend all your time with that person. So you have to find other things to do. So you get to spend time with your friends and your family, and you get to have a hobby, which maybe you wouldn't have time if the person was actually there. By having that time, you have the opportunity to build a life outside of your relationship, which I think is really important in any kind of relationship.
With a long distance relationship, you get that independence. So you're not relying on someone else for your happiness, you're adding to it.
It's important that every person involved in the relationship has something that makes them happy outside of the relationship.
So another benefit of being in a long distance relationship is you learn to communicate. And I think a lot of people have trouble communicating their feelings.
Yeah, like for me personally, it's always been hard to communicate, especially when it's feelings, because it's something so personal. So meeting Devin and being in this adventure together, it's been a real lesson because we have to communicate, because we can't see each other's emotions through a screen. So we have to talk about how we feel, and we have to, be there for each other, and we can't hug each other or anything, so we need to talk about it.
When you're learning to communicate that way, you learn about someone.
Yeah, you learn about someone in a much different way than if you were not to communicate. And also, I feel like we notice the benefits when we're together because we're better talking about conflicts. Like when we have a fight, it's easier to end the fight because we're talking about it and we're not just being mad at each other. So it's
definitely a positive.
It's a positive in every way.
And I think the final thing that we'll talk about for positives is that, just like in many relationships, you cherish your time together.
Yeah.
In a long distance relationship, I feel like you even cherish your time together even more because you're away from each other, so often or for so long that when you're together, you want to make the most out of your time.
Yeah, we're never bored with each other. We're always happy to see each other, and
Right.
even if we were together all the time, I don't think we would be bored with each other, but it's even nicer to see each other when you haven't seen each other for a while.
Right.
At the end of the day, is it worth it being in a long distance relationship? So what do you think?
For me, yes, I think absolutely.
Really?
There's no part of me that wants to say no, especially with you. And I think that's important because finding the right person and being with the right person makes all of the difference. If you both want to make it work, then it's going to work.
It's important to find someone that's just as committed as you are in the relationship, because that builds trust, and then you know that the other person is in this with you and not against you.
Just as long as you guys trust and communicate with each other, those are the two main pillars, I think, of a long distance relationship.
So we hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let us know if you have any more questions, or if we talked about something that maybe you see differently.
We are planning on doing more videos. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
And yes.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.